This podcast is brought to you by Connect First Credit Union. Today, we have a really special show. When we first kicked off What's Next Alberta, almost 2 years ago, it's hard to believe it's been that long, we started with an idea. We wanted to talk about the future of the province and really start talking about some of the positive things and the positive forces that are around us, to really counteract a lot of the negativity we hear a lot of the time. Because, quite frankly, Alberta's been going through a difficult time for a long period of time, many years now at this point. Having said that, things have looked a little bit better lately, and we're starting to see some reason for optimism, but it doesn't mask the fact that there's still some real challenges we're dealing with in this province. And, when you think about this kind of conversation, it's what inspires us at Connect First to try and generate and develop and build the greatest credit union we possibly can be, because we believe we play an important role in helping this province transition to what's next. But, when I think about all the guests we could possibly have to have this conversation around the future of this province, there isn't a single better one that I can think of than Adam Legge, who is the president and CEO of the Business Council of Alberta. Adam, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me on here, Wellington.
So, Adam, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, as you said, I'm the president of the Business Council of Alberta. I've been doing this for about 3 years. Prior to that, I had a short stint at the university, the Haskayne School of Business. Prior to that, led the Calgary Chamber for 7 years, which is where you and I met when you were one of our directors at the time. And a born and raised Vancouverite, but a now official Albertan and Calgarian, having been here now for about 24 years. So I think I can call it home now. And just a believer in this place and what we can do here. And that's why I love doing what I do, which is helping talk about and advance shared prosperity for Albertans.
Yeah, right on. And, it's 24 years, as an Albertan, which is a pretty long time. Because normally when you're moving east from Vancouver, the people in Vancouver say, what's wrong with you? You're moving
Everybody has asked me what's wrong with me,
But you get here and you realize how good it is here, right?
Exactly. Totally. Yeah, no, I love this place. It is that entrepreneurial spirit, the can-do attitude. It doesn't matter where you went to school or what your last name is. It's a place of just rolling up your sleeves and getting stuff done. I love that.
Yeah, right on. And now, you've always been really interested in economic development, the economy, big issues facing our society. Like, where did that interest come from in you in the first place?
It's hard to pinpoint any one thing. In university, just really began to enjoy learning about economies and economics and really understanding what makes the world tick, why some things in some places and some initiatives are more successful and why some are less successful, how things like conflict create opportunity and create challenges. And I just had some fantastic professors along the way, and I just kept reading about it. And I'm not your true hardcore economist. Like, I get really out of my depth in terms of some of the deep econometric modeling stuff. I leave that to my colleagues who are true economists. I'm sort of a fake one. Even though my degree is in land economics, and everybody looks at that as sort of a glorified real estate agent degree. But I just love understanding why there are certain times of prosperity, why there are times of challenge, and why some people do better than others. And then how do we fix that from a public policy standpoint? How do we fix that from a collective, unifying, collaborative standpoint? That's really what I love to do and try and make it happen wherever I am.
I love it, Adam. And that passion has always shined through in everything you've done, which is pretty amazing.
Thank you.
But let's learn a little bit about the BCA. It's a relatively new organization. Not sure if everybody in our audience would have heard of it, but the Business Council of Alberta is a really impressive organization. Tell us some more.
I have to give credit to our 5 founders who really got the idea rolling. It was Ron Mannix, Nancy Southern, Don Farrell, Hal Quisley, and Mac Van Willigen. They came together and said there's a need for a private sector public policy voice in Alberta, but not specific to any industry, but also very long term, and also focusing on what we call shared prosperity, which is that intersection of opportunity and capability, such that when business does well, all Albertans do well. And that when we think about policy, when we think about what we do, we're ensuring we're trying to lift all boats and we don't leave Albertans behind. We tested the idea early in 2019 with a small group of CEOs from across the province. They said yes, totally needed. And in the past 3 years, we've grown to about 120 companies and CEO members. We've done a variety of public policy work in everything from labor, talent, and skills, technology and innovation, energy and climate, agriculture, reconciliation. So we're really trying to take that big picture perspective as opposed to being a specific industry per se. And I think it's really been very widely accepted in the sense that we've got great relationships, great ability to have conversations in Edmonton with the provincial government, in Ottawa with the federal government. I was there about a week and a half ago, and they feel it's a new voice, a new perspective for Alberta, which they felt was much needed.
Having 120 of probably a lot of Alberta's greatest companies involved, I imagine that gives you a lot of influence with different parties and what have you.
It does. Our founders give us influence that help grow the membership base. It's important that not only the scale of the companies, but the breadth of the companies. In the sense, when you've got companies like Connect First, you've got Synovus, you've got CNRL, Suncor, WestJet, PCL, UFA, Nutrien. This sort of breadth creates a broad chorus. So it's harder for them to say, well, you're representing the X group, right? We're representing the private sector. But it's a diverse group. It's diverse in geography. We have members from Fort McMurray, Edmonton, Red Deer, Calgary, diverse perspectives. So it really does create a great entree into those conversations because they know we're speaking with a very broad voice.
And I know you were teasing earlier about your economics background, and I know what kind of serious economist you actually are. No. But let's talk about the economy a little bit. And I know you've done a lot of work on this, and we're going to get to some of that. But what's your overall take of where we're at as a province right now?
Right now it's a really interesting time to be in Alberta because you've got this sort of global backdrop of the war in Ukraine. You've got high inflation all around the world. You've got energy insecurity, affordability, food affordability, security. So it's really this amazing time of insecurity and availability challenges that Alberta is so uniquely poised to provide. And the May employment data came out. Alberta has higher employment than we did pre-pandemic. So we are back. From an employment standpoint, we have quite low unemployment. It's in about the 5.7, 5.8 range provincially. We have the energy sector, which is firing on all cylinders from a commodity price standpoint. The agriculture sector is looking really strong. Tech is having record years, although it's now kind of facing a bit of a downslope with respect to the global tech sector. Film and television is doing quite strongly. Tourism, we're hoping will get back on its feet relatively soon. So economically, Alberta's poised as long as we don't see sort of that global significant recession or stagflation. That's what I'm personally worried about, is that we're going to see some real challenges, particularly as interest rates rise. But I think Alberta long term, based on where we're at today, is very well positioned. And I think, quite frankly, the biggest challenge we'll find is trying to find enough people to fill the jobs that we're going to need to really maximize the opportunities for Alberta.
And even on that challenge, like with real estate prices being relatively in a better position here than elsewhere, maybe a little less sensitive to interest rate increases and so on, maybe it'll be easier for us to attract those folks that we're going to need in the future.
You're so right, Wellington. That's one of the conversations that we keep hearing, is that when you look at what happened to real estate prices in the pandemic in Vancouver and Toronto, I mean, people were going over asking like 6 digits. It was unbelievable. Alberta's real estate prices fairly and quite affordable compared to the other parts of the country, good job prospects, high economic activity. So it's really acting as a bit of a magnet. We've got a good story to tell here in Alberta in terms of our attractiveness for people saying, I can't afford real estate somewhere else in the country. I'm looking for opportunity. And as we've mapped out in our plan, we think that the future for Alberta is very bright. So a lot of opportunity and potential for people to move here.
And maybe that's where we go next then, is the plan. So define the decade. Tell us a little bit about what you've created here.
Well, Define the Decade, interestingly, was born at a time of a lot of negativity for Alberta. It was sort of started very early on in the pandemic. We'd gone through 5, 6, 7 years of economic decline, low energy prices, high unemployment, lots of layoffs. You then layer on the pandemic, we had negative oil prices, uncertainty of where the world was going. And there were lots of voices sort of saying, we wonder if Alberta's best days are behind us. We began to sort of challenge that internally. It was really Nancy Southern, I'll give credit for the actual concept, because she said, actually, the work I do globally, I think there's no better place in Alberta. We have so many opportunities. We just need to define the decade. And that's where it was born, as a bit of a antidote to some of the negativity of Alberta's future. And even now in today's point in time where we've got high commodity prices, et cetera, it's an even greater launching off point. So what we did is really ask Albertans, what's the future that they want? What does a good life look like to you in 10 years? And then we worked with stakeholders, businesses around what's the plan to get us to achieve that vision. And that's really what defined the decade.
Right on. So why don't we dig into that then? Like, tell us a little bit about what the prosperity vision of this document, what is it?
Yeah. So when we asked Albertans, what does a good life look like for you? They were remarkably consistent across pretty much every demographic you could think of in terms of every geography in the province, every political spectrum, every walk of life, gender, etc. What we want in 10 years is three things. One is it's a place of belonging, that everybody feels welcome, accepted, no matter who you love, where you came from, that you can find community. You can be welcome in that community and really feel this is home. So that was the first thing. The second thing was it's a place of opportunity, that we don't create barriers to welcoming people. We don't create barriers to investment into business. If you have a great idea and you're willing to roll up your sleeves, that you can create something here or be part of something here. And then thirdly, that it's a place of solutions, that challenges don't sit around long. People come to Alberta to solve hard challenges, big things. We figured out how to extract oil out of sand, how to drill sideways underground, how to create treatments for hepatitis C. I mean, all of these things originated in Alberta, and that we really rally around trying to solve challenges. It was a place of belonging, place of opportunity, and a place of solutions.
Just to take that tangent a little bit, I thought it was a great example, the story about treatments for hepatitis here. We often talk about the exploits in energy, right? Historically, we've done some incredible things in that sector, but we're starting to see great things happen in other sectors. What are some of the big ones that are top of mind for you?
Oh, man. You look along some of the ag tech and agricultural, some of the precision farming that we're now using, combining GPS and artificial intelligence and the ability to be autonomous and, maximizing yield with minimum inputs and precision cuts and seeding and things like that. It's remarkable. Some of the fractionation that we're doing with pulses. So you take a single lentil and you can get fiber out of that. You can get protein out of that. You can get the carbohydrates out of that. You can get the oils out of that. And you're able to sort of parse all of those products into individual commodities. So you're taking one thing that we used to sell and ship in bulk around the world and creating four products out of that. You're seeing tremendous advancements in health and wellness in Alberta with respect to some of the research going on, the Hotchkiss Brain Institute, and in terms of some of the stroke research they're doing, the cardiac imaging they're doing at USC, the Lee Cushing Virology Institute at U of A, doing just tremendous research on hepatitis C and diabetes. They feel they're sort of on this, just on the cusp of almost curing type 1 diabetes. So it's just incredible to see what Alberta innovators are doing.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about economic expansion, prosperity missions. I think it's another major part of this plan. What are some of the big things that you think we need to focus on here?
With this plan, we decided to do something a little different than what most traditional economic development plans do, which is say we're going to pick these sectors, which, let's say oil and gas or agriculture or transportation logistics. And we said, let's level that ambition up a bit, because if we are truly going to become that vision of being a place of solutions, why don't we look to the biggest challenges in the world and say we are going to find those things that Alberta is uniquely positioned to solve based on our strengths and our advantages and our assets. And that not only will enable Alberta to deliver solutions to the world, but in the meantime, it will attract investment and generate prosperity for Albertans. So we've identified three what we call prosperity missions. So it's taking this kind of mission-based approach, kind of the moonshot, the DARPA model that they use in the States that got everything from some of our smartphone technologies to putting someone on the moon. And so the three we've identified are feeding everyone, which is sustainable and healthy food, energy solutions, low carbon energy, materials and minerals. And the third is healthy lives, so medical and wellness advancements. Those are the three things that Alberta has really core strengths in, that we think are global scale challenges that we can solve and also generate prosperity. So it's really landing well with Albertans saying, yeah, you know what, we actually like this way of framing it. The sectoral approach is pretty generic. Let's be different. Let's be bold, and let's try and solve challenges in the world.
So let's talk about sustainability then. So you've identified prosperity pillars.
Yep.
Tell us what those are.
They're the foundation, the bedrock of any economic development plan. And when people see them, they're going to realize that they're not unique to Alberta. They're kind of those things that you'll find in any economic development plan, but we need to make sure we do them well here in Alberta. And they're really sort of streamed across three things. The first is people. The two in the people stream are quality of life and belonging, so that we have a place that people want to come to. They feel welcome. They feel that they belong. The second one is skilled and prepared workforce. That's the capabilities, the potential of our people, everything from kindergarten all the way to post-secondary. So it's enabling us to have the workforce of the future, make sure people can continue to develop their skills over lifelong learning and be adaptable and ready for technology and innovation as their work changes and evolves over time. And then the other stream is kind of those platforms, technology and innovation. So it's technology, but it's also innovation's a mindset. It's about how do you change goods and services and products to find new markets or add value. So we want to make sure that every business thinks about innovation, that government thinks about innovation. We also talk about the physical and digital infrastructure needed to make our companies and communities successful. And then finally, it's about sustainability. The sustainability of our environment, our air, our water, our land, but also fiscal sustainability. Alberta's really struggled in the past with highs and lows from the financial coffer standpoint. And so we really want to make sure we sort of stabilize that, create something a bit more balanced, that we can create more certainty and predictability into the future. So those pillars are really those things. You'll see them in every economic development plan you read, but we just want to make sure we identified where Alberta needs to do some work to shore up those, to be competitive and to be successful.
So when you have 120 of some of Alberta's most influential companies involved, getting them to kind of to the same place is a pretty amazing achievement. Like, what was that like when you were building this plan?
We were really lucky. We had a fantastic, we call it executive task force. So we asked 12 of our members to be on a task force that would really guide the work. It's co-chaired by Susanna Pierce of Shell Canada and Corey Jansen of Alta ML. So we had a bit of that older economy, resource economy, newer economy, tech, Edmonton, Calgary, male, female. So we had a really great combination with the two of them. They've been phenomenal. And then we had 10 other members. And we spent what was supposed to be 3 months, now turned into 12. We spent 12 months with them really working through all of these issues that we got feedback from the community through our consultations. We got feedback from stakeholders and from the members ourselves. And so the task force has really shown strong leadership in working with our 120 member CEOs and saying, these are the kinds of things we're seeing, these are the kinds of things we're hearing, and this is where we need to go. We got lots of great feedback from the members, and it's ultimately at a level, Wellington, that it's still kind of a broad blueprint. It's not the actual, detailed schematic, so to speak. So I think that's where people might have some differing views in terms of how things would play out. But overall, from a vision standpoint, the missions and the pillars, everybody is just really excited and aligned behind where we're going, because I think it captures the new, it captures our historical strengths and assets and capabilities, and it also shows a different story of Alberta. It turns the page on sort of this older stereotype that many people outside of Alberta have of this place.
So what kind of work have you been doing to share the story or share the message?
So we launched June 16th, and we've spent a ton of time in stakeholder pre-consultation. So we have met with both provincial and federal governments outlining what the plan looks like. And I'm pleased to report we have one thing that the provincial federal governments agree on, and that's define the decade and its directions. We've talked with a lot of the stakeholder groups that we engage with to develop the plan and said, here's what it looks like now that it's done. And we've worked with our members along the way to really share updates and how it was taking shape. In my career, I've never done anything of significance like this. I mean, I've done economic development plans for the city, but in terms of the scope and scale of this, but also we spent so much time socializing this, such that I know there are people who won't like it when it comes out, but we've done our utmost to make sure that the most number of people who should know about it do know about it, and that they've had a chance to weigh in on what it looks like.
Yeah, right on. And when you're thinking about the future of a province like Alberta, a very unique kind of place, getting us all onto sort of buying into one vision, or at least a direction, as you've kind of described it, is a pretty incredible, potential thing to make true. Tell me, what does the work of your team like behind you? Like, you've got some great folks on your team.
Yeah, amazing.
What are they doing every day to try and bring this together and to share the story and this narrative?
We've always had the mindset that once we put this out into the world, we're only sort of 50% of the way there.
Right.
The rest of it is actually sharing it, communicating it, activating it, taking bits and pieces of it, and doing deeper dive policy work on it. So once it comes out June 16th, we've got lots of media that we're going to be doing. We've got lots of what we're calling road shows. We want to take it around the province and be sharing it with chambers of commerce and rotaries, industry associations, professional associations, different conferences, engaging with Albertans on it, taking bits and pieces of it and saying that's going to be our next policy project. We've got a scorecard we've created based on some of the key metrics that we want to make sure that Alberta achieves. And that's all been given to feedback from the community. And annually, we'll be reporting back on how has Alberta performed in these different metrics over the past year. So we plan to make it a continual story, at least on an annual basis, reporting back to Albertans. but it's a living, breathing thing. 10-year plans, you can kind of get the first couple of years right. And then after that, depending upon what happens in the world, I mean, I can't imagine what it would be if we release this pre-Ukraine invasion. The context and the potential and the even the alignment and the sad realities of what's going on there would have been very absent.
Yeah.
And sort of lacking. Timing is everything.
Yeah.
And so I think what we're just going to keep doing is monitoring it and making sure that it's relevant for the times as the decade rolls on.
So let's maybe zoom in a bit then. Like when you're talking to some really interesting businesses every day, business people, stakeholders in the economy and so on, like what are some of the things that are happening out there that are inspiring you, like making you believe that our future can be a bright one here in this province?
So many things. I mean, in the consultations, we talk to high school students, university students, and just the desire to be part of that story. A lot of them, I think did say we want to see some change and evolution of the province in terms of its image and whatnot, but just a desire to be here, to be part of the story, but a new story.
Right.
That was really inspiring. I look at just some of the people that are blazing some new trails in terms of technology, in terms of different industries, in terms of just saying, the world isn't standing still and Alberta can't stand still either.
Yeah.
So many of the examples of technologies we talked about a minute ago that are really disrupting and overturning some of the old ways in which we've done things. People saying, look, we can be part of this evolution, particularly on the energy side, where we can be the best provider of ESG oil and gas, but we can also be making those moves into hydrogen and future fuels and turning the bitumen into carbon fibers that we're going to need for vehicles and airplanes and all those sorts of things. The lithium deposits we have in Alberta turning into the renewable economy. I get so excited about agriculture and what I see there and the potential. The biggest thing, Wellington, was when we talked to people all over the province from all walks of life, the biggest thing we heard was we're tired of the past 5 or 6 years of feeling sorry for ourselves or feeling hard done by. It's time to turn the page on that. And there was just this overwhelming desire to say, let's get back on track. Let's recapture that entrepreneurial, that Alberta can-do spirit, and let's forge ahead. And that's what was really inspiring for me, was hearing from Albertans, my fellow Albertans up in Grand Prairie or down in Medicine Hat, and just saying, it's time for a different story. It's time to turn the page. And that was what was probably the most inspiring for me.
I love that. So Adam, when you're looking ahead at the next decade then, like I've got a feeling you're going to be an optimist about our future, but tell us, like, what's your predictions for the next decade for this province?
Yeah, I think as investors would say, I'm going long in Alberta. But my predictions, we've heard from Albertans a unifying story of what they want the province to be like in 10 years. I'm hoping we can overcome these sort of day-to-day divisions that we see that are really holding our province back. We can't afford those any longer.
Yeah.
We have to find a rally point to all converge upon and to some degree set aside some of the differences and recognize that we can't continue to succeed in a divisive nature. We have to be united. We have to be collaborative. We have to be cohesive. To me, that's the fundamental sort of linchpin in success for Alberta. After that, the potential is limitless. I honestly believe that with the innovation that's happening in helping with energy solutions, with feeding everyone, and with medical wellness advancements. We talked about earlier the attractiveness of this place from an affordability, quality of life standpoint. Like, we have everything we need. And there are places around the world that would kill to be us and to have what we have and the potential. And so I think if I reflect on the Albertan sentiment that they want to turn the page on the bad times and the feeling bad about things, I really think we are like supercharged for the future. And let's just rally behind that unity, that common vision, and then do what Alberta does well, and that's unleash people to do their finest work and embrace that can-do spirit, because the world needs what we have, whether that's our ideas, our innovations, our resources. We can do it and we can deliver it all. And I can't think of a better place to be than Alberta.
That's awesome. And one of your points just really resonated with me, like the notion that, in a world of increasing polarization, if we could actually get to a place where we had true collaboration and we really got together to execute against some of these ideas, this province could really move mountains, right? Like we could,
totally.
Which is great. And it is encouraging when you start thinking about it from that vantage point. We have everything going for us. Like everything.
Yeah, you're so right.
Right on.
You're so
right on. So One of the reasons we wanted to start these conversations with special guests like you, Adam, is, we want to create a credit union that's designed for the 2020s and that is reimagining how we bring value to Albertans, to our members, to this province. And I'd love to hear what feedback or guidance or advice you might have for me or for us to create that credit union for the future.
Wellington, I think there's something really special about the credit union movement. In some of my work at the Haskayne School, I really studied what are those models that work over the long term. Credit unions were one where you have this sort of shared investment in the success of the organization that people wanted you to plow that back into the growth and success of the organization. So I think you're already well set up for success. But I think the other thing that you really bring into your leadership, Wellington, is making the credit union a place of welcoming and belonging, right? And I think we heard that loud and clear from Albertans that the future has to be about a place of belonging. And I think that's what you really strive to do at Connect First, is really to be a place of belonging for people, to feel part of their community, to feel part of something bigger. I mean, that would be my greatest advice, is to say, continue that path, because it's exactly what Albertans want. And then, when you see potential for alignment with any of the missions or the pillars, jump in with both feet, because I think that's continued to be part of the future of Alberta.
Oh, thank you very much for that, Adam. And that's very kind comments, actually. And we do want to be that organization where our members feel like they can bank where they belong, where our employees feel like they work where they belong too. So thank you for that. And I didn't even set that up, everybody. But what final comments would you like to share with our audience, if there was any messages you want to make sure that they're hearing?
Believe in this place. Let's all find that rally point. We all may have different views of how to get there, and that's okay. But we have to define what there is. And I think that's been absent in Alberta for some time. We believe we've found it through engaging with Albertans, what they've told us, that place of belonging, of opportunity, of solutions. And let's, I think, just do our finest to commit to that. And I think we will heal some of the divisiveness. We will get past some of the divisiveness, and we will unleash the potential of Alberta for us and for our future generations.
I love it. You are a great guest. This has been a lot of fun. I could just talk to you for hours. And by the way, we've done that.
Yes, we have.
So this felt really natural in terms of one of our What's Next Alberta podcasts. We could have filmed this at the pub, I think, probably. But Adam, thank you very much for being here with us. We're wishing you and the BCA all the best. And we're very fortunate to have a leader like you creating a vision for this collective future for our province. So thank you.
Thank you, Wellington. Thanks for having me on.
Next steps. So, Adam is a great guest. You won't find anyone anywhere who has probably more depth and a deeper understanding of some of the economic challenges we're facing as a province, but maybe how to get beyond this. And, if there's a few points that came up today that really, really resonated with me, is one is, just that notion that we just have to roll up our sleeves. We have been a place here in Alberta where we have solved problems. We've been problem solvers. We are a place of solutions, I think was the actual words that Adam used. And we need to be that place again. And I think one of the inspiring things here about what the work Adam's been leading is with the BCA is that they're trying to get us back to a place where we're bringing solutions. And to do that, they're really trying to get us out of that vortex of polarization that the whole world is going through and getting back to a place where we collaborate differently. And, when I was listening to him talk about the idea that they're engaging all kinds of stakeholders in the conversation, and the breadth of depth of the organizations involved and industries, and heck, even, talking to high school students and seeing, talking about what they need to see in their future to inspire them and to make them want to be a part of what's next for us to create that brighter future was pretty cool. And when you start thinking about that future, I think what I really like about their plan and what they're really advocating is it's the notion of we're creating a future where there's shared prosperity. And the notion that as the tide goes up, all boats rise, creating opportunity for everyone. And who wouldn't be inspired by that? So with that, just thanks again, Adam, for joining us. And if you liked what you heard today, share it with your network and be sure to subscribe. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on What's Next Alberta.